16th of 2023 City Council meeting. And Madam Clerk, would you please call roll, please?
Councilmember Vega.
I'm here now.
Councilmember Cordova.
She's absent this evening.
Councilmember Ball.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dirk Starbuck.
Present.
Mayor Janelle Osborne.
Here. Mr. Malavi, did we have any reportable action from closed session?
Mayor and City Council met in closed session to discuss the labor negotiation item on the agenda. Staff made a presentation and got direction from council, but there's no reportable action.
Thank you. I would like to invite Chaplain Nelson to come forward and join us for the pledge afterwards.
Please rise. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I ask that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our day, a sense of welfare and the true needs of our community, and grant them the ability to work together in harmony despite honest disagreement, and for personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. So we pray for the agenda set before them this evening. Graciously grant them assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in our beloved city. In your blessed name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, it's probably going to take me longer to read the proclamations than the rest of our agenda, but bear with me. All right, tonight we'll start with National Public Works Week. Public Works Week is May 21st through the 27th, 2023, and this year's theme is Connecting the World Through Public Works. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Lompoc. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Lompoc to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of important public works and public work programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association and Canadian Public Works Association, it should be recognized as Connecting the World Through Public Works. Now therefore I, Janelle Osborne, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim National Public Works Week from May 21st to the 27th of 2023. And we have our Director of Public Works to accept this. Any additional words you'd like to share with the community?
Just like to thank you all. Thank you for this. And I would like to thank the often unthanked city employees out there in the field that do the hard work each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a very, very small street staff, and they are doing a great job trying to recover from all the potholes that the rain created. So we appreciate what they're doing and appreciate your patience with them. The other proclamation is for Building Safety Month. This one's a bit long, but it's an important code that we as the city are required to enforce, even though the standards are set by the federal and the state level. Whereas the City of Lompoc is committed to recognize that our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens, both in everyday life and in times of natural disaster. And whereas our confidence in the structural integrity of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety, and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a U.S.-based organization that brings together local, state, and federal officials that are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas our nations benefits economically and technology from using the international codes that are developed by a national voluntary consensus code and standards developing organizations, our government is able to avoid the high cost and complexity of developing and maintaining these codes, which are the highest and most widely adopted building safety and fire prevention codes in the world. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from natural disasters such as wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes, which according to a FEMA commissioned study by the National Institute of Building Sciences provide $11 in future mitigation benefits for every dollar invested. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our communities, largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to America's prosperity. And whereas Building Safety Month 2023 encourages all Americans to raise awareness of the importance of safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, and new technologies in the construction industry, Building Safety Month encourages appropriate steps everyone can take to ensure the safety of our building environments and recognizes that implementation of safety codes by local and state agencies has saved lives and protected homes and businesses. And whereas each year, in observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, I, Janelle Osborne, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join with their communities in participation in Building Safety Month activities, and I will give it to our Community Development Director who oversees the building staff.
That was a long proclamation, so I'll just say thank you.
And I want to say thank you to our new building inspector and our new code enforcement personnel. They work really hard to keep our community at a standard that is safe for all of us. And now for the Peace Officers Memorial Day and Police Week. And we have a special event happening tomorrow that is part of this. But let me read the proclamation, and then I'm sure PD will share with you the fun activities that is coming tomorrow. Whereas National Police Week was created in 1962 after then President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, signed Public Law 87-726, the law designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and stated that the week in which the day falls should be National Police Week. Every year, the national law enforcement officers organize a memorial service to honor police officers who lost their lives in the line of duty. And whereas law enforcement has existed for centuries, although its officers haven't always been known as police. In ancient China, they were called prefects. Old Babylonians called them pukuru. In the Inca Empire, they called their officials who held the roles of magistrates kuruka. Inspectors or lower-level governors were called torikurak. I had to look that up. And whereas the United States police force has developed since then to become a powerful one with dedicated officers, the goal of National Police Week is to honor and celebrate these officers. Individuals and governments have a responsibility to honor their brave and hardworking law enforcement on this day. In October 2020, the United States approved legislation authorizing the construction of a National Law Enforcement Museum on federal property directly across the street from the Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. And whereas the work of law enforcement officers is essential to preserving peace in our communities and to ensuring the safety of precious lives and personal property. Now, therefore, I, Janelle Osborne, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby call upon the citizens of Lompoc to observe Peace Officers Memorial Day on May 15th, 2023, and the week in which it falls as Police Week, May 15th through the 21st, 2023, to recognize and appreciate the vital role that the City of Lompoc's hardworking law enforcement officers play in keeping our city safe. So they do a hard job that I definitely couldn't do, so I appreciate them for that work. But in response to not only honoring the fallen officers, they are providing an opportunity for you to get to know them with an activity that was returned after a very big popularity before the pandemic and has grown so much that I think every food truck in town is participating in. So I'll let you go ahead and share the opportunity tomorrow after you share some additional information.
Well, as we're talking about that, the food truck festival will be tomorrow between 4 p.m. until closing, or when they run out of food. It'll be held over here in the open area just to the north of us. There's 13 food trucks going to be available. We're also going to be in the courtyard area in front of the City Hall. There will be Cycle Mania, a bike rodeo will be out there. So come out and have a night of festivities with us. We look forward to having you enjoy the food trucks and the bike festival, the bike rodeo itself. National Police Week pays special recognition to the law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty in the cause of public safety. This year, in 2023, we are adding an additional 556 names to the National Memorial. Of that 556, 224 officers died in the line of duty last year alone, 2022. The other 332 officers that are the other side of that equation are fatalities from years past and are now being recognized as line of duty deaths. And they are all part of the National Memorial in Washington, D.C., where there is 23,785 names now currently on the National Memorial of downed officers. So as the week progresses and you get an opportunity, whether they're your own Lompoc True Blue, or they're in tan and green, or all tan, or military police officers, I encourage you to take the opportunity to thank them for their service.
So we all know how limited parking is here at City Hall, and with 13 food trucks and the opportunity to come out, one of the additional things that the cycling community is bringing is bike valet. So if you'd like to ride your bicycle over for the event, there will be a safe place to park your bikes and be watched while you enjoy the festivities. And at 6 p.m. we'll do a mayor's ride around the neighborhood behind us. So come out, bring your family, get to know your local police officers and thank them for the work they do, and remember those we have lost. I hope to see you all tomorrow evening. All right, City Manager, Mr. Albro, anything to report?
Yeah, I'd like to recognize a couple of divisions. The first I'd like to recognize is the Planning Division for receiving the Transportation Planning of Excellence for the Lompoc Streetscape Multimodal Improvement Plan. I also like to recognize the Urban Forestry for their Award of Excellence for their 2022 Tree City, and also their 2023 Tree Line USA from the Arbor Day Foundation. And you covered the festival here tomorrow. We also have one Friday for Lompoc Senior Health Expo. That'll be at the Dewey Center. There'll be health resources there, lunch and door prizes, and that'll be between 9 a.m. and noon. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the City Manager? All right, seeing none, we will move on to consent calendar. If you would like to speak on consent calendar, the number to call is 805-875-8201. We have one item. Item 6 is being pulled until a future meeting. If you would like to speak, you can come forward to the microphone, and you have 3 minutes.
Council, Madam Mayor. So I want to talk about item number 3 on the agenda, and that is the ordinance that would limit or do away with overnight parking in certain areas. I myself would like to see this expanded to residential areas because I live in a residential area right behind the post office. We have RVs and trailers parked right on our street regularly. Traffic, day and night, multiple people coming and going, spending short periods of time at these trailers, at these RVs. Nothing ever gets done. There's a policy on place that says, a car can be on the street for 72 hours, and then after 72 hours, it can get cited or towed. Well, that's complaint driven. Not a lot of people are actually going to complain about something. I would like to see some enforcement in some of these RVs, some of these buses, some of these trailers that people are living in, parked in residential neighborhoods, because children are out playing. People are out, going about their lives in these neighborhoods, and there's people who don't belong in these neighborhoods. There's people who are bringing an element of crime into these neighborhoods, drugs into these neighborhoods, prostitution, sex trafficking into these neighborhoods. And that does not need to be happening in our small community. We need to take a stand against what's happening in our community, and we need to show that this community is safe and certain behaviors will not be tolerated or not okay in residential neighborhoods, because we need to be able to show that people who move to Lompoc, who move to these houses, who buy these houses, who rent these houses, that they're in safe areas, that they don't need to worry. I would love to see a safe parking program here in Lompoc outside of a residential area. Why not City Hall parking lot? That would be perfect. It's got police station right here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else rise and no one call in, we will close public comment on consent calendar. All items listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted after one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the council vote. Any items withdrawn from the consent calendar for separate discussion will be addressed immediately before the second oral communication near the end of the meeting. Are there any questions on items 1 through 5 or an item from 1 through 5 anyone would like to pull? Councilmember Ball.
I just had a quick question or two on item 3, just for clarity. Would the city manager, would you mind, just for letting us know kind of where these places are? Could you kind of talk about the areas that this is applied to in general, and what's in those areas that's causing us to implement this in those areas?
Well, I don't have them all memorized, but I can give you a brief overview.
Just general areas.
The industrial complex over there behind Home Depot. There's one that's over by Walmart. And a lot of it's because there's a lot of crime going on there. They're stealing stuff. There's people who are afraid that work there at night to get into their cars. So it's really for public safety and to control the atmosphere.
So I appreciate that. I know we've gotten quite a few complaints from business owners and people, really frustrated with it. So I do appreciate that we're putting some action towards that. I just wanted personally to say that, homelessness or being unhoused isn't specifically a crime, but there is a lot of criminal element and things that are happening that are not okay. So I do appreciate us putting that effort in. I just want to affirm and hope that we continue to communicate with the county as we interact with some of these folks, that we're doing our best to try to attach them with appropriate services. And if they don't do that, then they got to follow the law too. So I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Any more questions or anything to pull? Councilmember Vega.
No, just want to make sure Jeremy doesn't have another question.
No, he's already asked.
I mean
his.
it in fun.
I can come up with several.
No, I know you will. I know you will, but I'd like to make a motion, if that's okay.
Sure.
Make a motion that we accept consent calendar as written.
Items 1 through 5.
1 through 5, items 1 through 5.
All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
I'll second.
And we have a second. All right, let's vote. And that passes 4-0 and 1 in absentia. All right. Staff presentation. We have a staff presentation from Public Works regarding stone pine trees on South H Street.
Good evening, everyone. I am here to do a brief update on the Italian stone pines and what we're doing managing this grove. I'm the urban forestry supervisor, Sean O'Neill, and I will go through this slide and be available for questions at the end. So this one right here, these are the trees that we're discussing and that we'll go through this evening. So the basics are, these trees were planted in the 30s and 40s. They're pushing 90 years old. There's 60 locations that lines 3 city blocks on South H. These trees have an expected lifespan of 50 to 150 years. So there's a 100-year span in there, and we're 40 years into that. There's 60 trees originally that were planted down there, and 42 of them still remain of the original grove. So here's the history of the inspections of these trees. The first inspection, it was in 2003 by Mahoney, and then again in 2013. Since then, Ken Knight's been performing inspections on these trees, and it's been roughly every 2 years. So, it's a little difficult to see there. The yellow line at the bottom is the most recent inspection, and I apologize, that is hard to see on this slide. The rating and residual rating are moderate. The inspection found 14 trees to be in the high-risk category. That was this last inspection performed. And out of those 14 trees, 13 of them, even with mitigations done, they still remain in the high-risk category. So mitigation's not going to remove them from that category. This one's a little easier to see, and this one's how they categorize them. So probability of failure is on the left. The consequences is along the top. So when they're in high risk, we have likely and very likely to fail, and the consequence is going to be high or severe. That's not a place that we want to be with these trees. And it's not an easy decision to make, but 13 of those trees are going to have to come out because we are not going to be able to move them out of the high-risk category. So once we have an inspection done, I'll review the inspection with the consulting arborist, and we'll go over areas that we feel need to be addressed per the inspection. For the work that's going to be performed, I meet on site with a contractor, and we will review together the inspection that the consulting arborist performed, and then we schedule the work. Once they changed it on me. So once the work gets started, I go out and I visit the contractor frequently to oversee and make sure that they're following what the consultant's report was. So moving forward, one of the recommendations from the consultant was to perform inspections every 2 years. I agree with that. We're getting into, these trees are aging. They're aging out. 50 years old is the younger ones, the bottom line of their life expectancy, and we're roughly 40 years past that. Once a tree is rated as high risk, if there's not mitigation that's going to remove it from that category and reduce that risk, then that tree will be scheduled to be removed. And trees will be replaced with the same type. It'll be Italian stone pines that are going back. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and if there are questions, I am here to answer the best that I can.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Mr. O'Neill, just thank you. This is news nobody wants to hear, but I think we've all been expecting it. The aspect of how many trees have already fallen just this year on cars. 2, I don't know, but over the years, we've been very lucky in the sense that nobody's been in a car. We haven't crushed a house. So we have 42 standing.
Correct.
You're recommending removal of 14, which would leave us with 28, but with replantings. The cost of this, now, I asked a few meetings ago in the budget how much money we had set aside for the mitigation of the tree, not the consultant, and I think the number was 140,000. Is that enough money to take care of the 14 hazard trees? And what about pruning the other ones to get them out of your high risk and very risk and all that?
So when I put the number together, that would have been enough.
For all the trees?
To remove and replace and trim, perform whatever mitigation measures that were recommended within the consulting arborist report.
So remove 14, replace 14, and prune the remaining.
Correct.
Okay.
And that includes pruning the younger trees out there as well. So the trees, when they were planted, obviously there's more studies that have been done since the 30s and 40s, and training the trees to grow and establish themselves will help actually the longevity of them. So we see what was known at that time, how long we got out of those trees. So I look at it as a long-term investment.
Let's talk about the roots, the other end of the tree.
The hard part to see.
Yeah, other than when it comes through the street, the sidewalk, or somebody's foundation. Now, what do we do in that case? I mean, is there, okay, things have changed in 40 years. Do we put drip waters and try and get the roots to go down or up? Are we going to replace sidewalks when we put new trees? I mean, 140,000 on the trees, okay, but I'm kind of curious, do we need more money to fix damage done by current trees?
That would be ideal. That would be something to work with the engineering division over, and actually putting in root barriers would help with that. which is planned to also be installed as the root barriers as they plant them.
Part of the 140,000 or?
Yeah. The root barriers are not very expensive to install when you plant the trees.
Sounds like a cheap insurance.
Fairly cheap.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, is that something that maybe Public Works could come up with something? Well, I mean, you're not going to have the answer, Mike, but when we look at this a little further into the budget where we could fix sidewalks and do some of the cleanup on them rather than just,
Well, I mean, there's no easy answer for those trees. I mean, there's a lot of damage existing. And they're really not the right tree to plant for a street tree. I mean, that's just the reality. But they're loved. I mean, I know nobody wants to remove them from the town, so you just kind of have to take the good with the bad. I mean, so we manage the best we can.
you know, let's face it, we need your Bronco to go down 8th Street, you know? It's a little rough sometimes with roots and all, but, okay.
It's never going to be perfect, I guess. If you're wanting me to tell you it's going to be perfect, I can't tell you that.
But the goal is, if you replace the tree and the sidewalk has been damaged by it, potentially to repair the sidewalk when that tree is gone because it's no longer pushing it up.
yeah, and that's something that can happen over time. Just because, so as the trees are replaced, it's going to take several years for the roots to even become an issue. So sidewalk repairs and street repairs can happen long after the trees are replaced.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be, they don't have to happen immediately.
Well, it would be nice if it could happen immediately, but given the budget, we can start planning for, as you begin to replace trees, you can notify us and we can start to plan a budget, because this is the big ask. I'm asked often about the damage of the sidewalk and that it's becoming a tripping hazard. And we remove so many trees in so many other neighborhoods because it's damaging and we don't replace the trees. So we have to take a proactive planning of, if we're going to replace the trees and we're planning for them not to create additional damage by managing their growth and making sure their roots go down and protect them with putting the root barriers in, then we should also plan for replacing the sidewalks and repaving the streets where we can and when we can. I agree with Starbuck on that one. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Councilmember Ball.
Yeah, obviously, we need to be adults, and we need to do the right thing when the risk is there. And I appreciate you and for being professional about this and helping us figure out how to mitigate some issues, how to hold on to something that's iconic for our town, and how to ease into the necessity of doing the right thing. Two, a couple quick questions. And you already answered that we're replacing the trees with the same type of tree, which I don't have a problem with, because I probably won't be here in 90 years. But anyway, I'm excited about that. But how do we decide the size of the tree that we plant? And the only reason I'm saying that is, you know, do we get a 10-year head start, a 2-year head start, or I mean, how do we even look at that?
So the decision for the size of the tree that's replacing those is really aesthetics. The establishment of the tree they tend to do better at an older age when they're replanted there. The aesthetics really, because we're taking out such big trees, we don't want to put little bushes in. Although the ones that we are putting in are still kind of little bushes compared to them, but they are sizable trees.
Sure. And what I guess I was pushing for is, like, look, Mike, I understand where you're coming from. This is not the right trees to put there, but this is most people on that street would say it was the most beautiful mistake we ever made. So it is very important to this neighborhood. It is something that they identify with, and a lot of those houses have been there for many, many years. So another thing that I wanted, and I'm not sure this is for you, but for the city, obviously this is a very sensitive issue for people that live in that neighborhood. There's a couple that just want you to take them all out. But there's a lot of people that live there that love those trees. So again, they can't all show up at City Hall and know that we're even talking about this. I would just hope that we would have some sort of outreach very specific to that neighborhood that lets them know, hey, we're hitting the severe high-risk category in certain areas, and if that tree is maybe in someone's house, are they going to wake up one morning and, oh my gosh, they just took the tree out? I mean, how do we?
Yeah, we would notify them. In the past, I think it was back in 2017, 2018 era, we held 2 town halls down there at the Stone Pine Hall. related to the trees and the potential of what may happen. So the consultant came in and looked, and at that time, we were able to perform mitigation measures that we didn't have to remove any. And that was a big crown reduction because they were overextended, so we brought them to try to center the weight and the balance of the tree. So that, again, that was back then. So we had one pre-inspection and one post-inspection to reveal what the findings were. We could go that route again and do a town hall down at Stone Pine Hall and go over what we're doing moving forward again.
I think for me, just considering that the city was willing to have 2 meetings, and that was just to talk about mitigation and not even taking out one tree, and now we're literally going to take out 30% or a big portion of those trees, I think, you know, if we were willing to have that communication with them then, I'd hope we would be willing to do that now.
Yeah, and the consultant would be willing to come in and also just to kind of maybe go a little bit more into depth on what his actions are that he does in order for these inspections and how he comes to the conclusion than what I could probably explain.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for that. And then I had a question, maybe, I'm not looking for a specific number per se, but maybe a yes or no from city attorney. Have we paid out money for damages caused by these trees in the last 2 years?
Yeah, I know the answer to that one. Yeah, we paid out 2 totals, and yeah, they're big bucks. I'm glad we're doing this. This is the point that we need to take action. I think we paid out probably about $40,000 last year with these big storms on damages to vehicles.
So I know we need to do something. I'm in full support of that. I just hope that we're sensitive with the neighborhood and do our best to communicate with all of the folks that live there.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
One suggestion I have is maybe, again, the beautification committee might be a great tool to advocate, and maybe after they're done with the June beautification competition, maybe that could be the next meeting. They could have it at Stone Pine instead of here at City Hall and be a part of that, so that they could be the community's advocates and bring that back to us. That'd be a great use of that committee.
Absolutely, I could do that.
Okay. Any more questions for Sean? All right, seeing none, thank you so very much for the work and the update.
Yep, no problem, thank you.
Sure. All right, we are now to the point in our agenda where general oral communication on city matters is open. If you would like to speak to an issue that's not on the agenda, you're welcome to come forward. You have 3 minutes, or you may call in at 805-875-8201. Floor is now open.
Yes, Mayor and City Council members. I am a Lompoc resident for quite some number of years. And one of the things that has come to my attention is the incursion of the vendor carts and sidewalk sales and things of that nature that are, after we've talked to some of these vendors, are not permitted. And so this is happening. And this is a concern in that I'm also acquainted with business of the Lompoc Valley, and they express their concerns of being in competition to keep brick and mortar businesses, their doors open, while they're paying the taxes and the fees and the permits for the city to maintain their businesses, while we have a plethora in this development of these, for lack of a better word, shopping cart type sales going on. And it usually happens on the weekends and in the evenings. And so I express my concern over that because we work hard to support the local businesses and patronizing them. And I talked to them about even the Mother's Day sales, and they said, you know, we depend heavily on these types of events in order to keep, you know, to meet that gap between one type of event and another. And so they've expressed the concern. So I'm bringing this to you to address, and I know that we have a person that is working to follow up on violations of these permitting processes. And I'd like to encourage a greater visibility in that to you and to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, Madam Mayor, Police Department. So I've spoken on this issue a few times, and I've heard nothing about this whatsoever. It is 2023. We got authorized, City Council authorized funds for body cameras in 2021, I believe, or 2020. What has happened in those 2 years? Nothing. That is what's happened. We have had instances in those 2 years of excessive force, or not exactly excessive force, but force being used by police officers. Sometimes it's been called into question. What's a great backup when these things get called into question? Body cameras. Why has it taken 2 years and no answers for us to get body cameras? It not only protects us citizens, it also protects the police officers. There's accountability both ways. If there's a report, okay, let's look at the body camera. Let's look at the camera footage. Both parties are accountable because you can't lie with a body camera. But without one, what are you going to believe? Are you going to believe the police officers? Or are you going to believe the citizens? Because you could get two different sides of the story. What's the solution? We need accountability, and it needs to be directed from City Council to the police department, to whoever makes decisions on these body cameras, because it is time. It is time to have body cameras so that there's confidence in our police department, so that citizens feel safe when dealing with police officers, so they don't have to worry about what's going to happen. Can I trust these police officers? We need to restore trust within our police department. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no one else rise and no one call in, we will close oral communications and bring it back to the agenda. Item number 7, public hearing regarding nuisance abatement of weeds, rubbish, refuse, and dirt, adoption of resolution number 6578, parentheses 23, and our Battalion Chief, Gina Paskey, will be presenting.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, staff, and our wonderful community and citizens. Again, my name is Dina Paschke. I'm the Fire Marshal and Battalion Chief for the City of Lompoc. And tonight we're here regarding a public hearing for public nuisance, abatement of weeds, rubbish, refuse, and dirt, which is kind of a long title for our weed abatement program. So tonight, staff, we have 2 recommendations. One is we're holding the public hearing as we're required to receive comments and information from the public to show cause as to why nuisance conditions upon subject properties should not be abated, and also to adopt Resolution 6578 and ordering the Fire Marshal to abate nuisances and as declared on April 18th, 2023 by the Resolution 6572, not otherwise satisfactory, corrected in a time and manner provided by law. The background for this is that we did hold a resolution prior with that 6572 to declare weeds and or debris on identified parcels as public nuisances, And on behalf of the fire department, I mailed a lot of letters out to different parcel owners, informing them of the nuisance conditions and of the date and time of our location of our public hearing. The notices informed that each property owner, if they abated the nuisances by May 18th, so we still have a couple days, then the city would not impose the administrative fees or special assessments as authorized by the popular government code section 39573. It's popular this time of year when we have this much rain. I have performed a large number of the site inspections in order to provide updates for this evening. As lots can be mowed at any time, the addendum is kind of a living document and it's constantly changing. Updates are provided and from what was posted, I believe we post on Friday. So this is the updated addendum A for the second letter, weed abatement list. To proceed with the abatement of the public nuisance, it is necessary for the city council to hear any objections to clearing of weeds or removal of rubbish, refuse, and dirt. If good cause is shown as to why the weeds on certain parcels should not be abated, then the city council may sustain the objection and remove the parcel from the list. If a property owner objects but does not show good cause as to why a parcel should not remain on the list, then the city council may overrule that objection. After hearing all the interested parties that wish to speak, city council is requested to overrule or sustain objections presented. One of the fiscal impacts is with this program, there is a teeter program that can occur, and it is spelled out in the staff report. So if the parcel owner does not actually heed the notice and clear their lot, then we have the duty to make sure that it is fire safe and with the upcoming fire season. With that, we could hire a contractor to clear the lot, and with that, it would also include an administrative fee plus what the contractor's clearing fee is. So it's generally a little bit higher than if the person took care of it their own self, because we would have to add an administrative fee. And after all of that, the assessment is made and confirmed. A lien would attach to the parcel. This is part of the Santa Barbara County as adopted as a teeter plan for distribution of property taxes and assessments. And the city participates in this. We do it annually. At least 5 days prior, we have posted an abatement weed notice and sent all the owners of the subject properties informing them of this public hearing tonight. Parcels were cleared prior to the city council's abatement will not be subject to any special assessment and lien or to any administrative fee. Parcels cleared after the abatement would be issued will be subject to the administrative fee only. Parcels that are cleared by the city following the order, if we have to hire a contractor, that'll be an additional cost. Costs related to this annual weed abatement program are also not ultimately charged to the property owner as a lien or reimbursed by the property prior to imposition of a lien, are budgeted for and paid for from the general fund. We have appropriations with a weed and debris abatement budgeted in the fire preventions program. We do have an administrative fee assessed to parcels to recover portions of the costs from back into the general fund. And one of the conclusions, I have one more section. The adoption of Resolution 6578 will allow the fire department to cause the abatement of nuisance conditions on the listed parcels and will also allow the recovery of administrative costs incurred by the city for these nuisance abatement. In accordance with the Government Code Section 39574, the fire marshal will keep an account of the costs of abatement and administrative costs and submit the city council for confirmation an itemized written report showing such costs. And as I've done in years past, I now have the fund weed abatement facts for this year's. I did mention, I think it was maybe a year ago, I had the fund weed facts, but that's changed now given in light of what we have. So the first fact is the first letters that were sent, we sent just under 350, which is quite a lot of work. It's a big number because, why? We had a ton of rain, a lot of moisture, and we had atmospheric rivers lining up. For the second letter notice, I caused and sent 108 second letters. In order to close a case, I might be visiting a site, going by at least a dozen times for one lot. So this represents a pretty large volume of work. Second letters that remain open tonight, which is your updated list, are 62. So we're getting really good compliance. We're getting our numbers down, which is what we'd expect. We still have a couple more days, and the deadline is still May 18th. Many people do this like literally like on the day of the deadline. Procrastination's, still a thing. Okay, fun fact number 5, 7 owners on this group have 25 of those parcels. So about almost half of those belong to just 7 owners. So once they kind of get their workload done, it'll greatly reduce the number. I am on a constant basis speaking with a lot of landscapers in town, and we have had 7 parcels of these 62 already scheduled to go. They're having trouble getting mowers and getting enough of the landscapers to go over and do it because there's such a high volume of work this year. Obviously, we've all seen the weeds have gone nuts. Some of those that are scheduled are on West Central, near the Chamber of Commerce. Spoke to a nice person today. There's a couple lots over there that are about to be done. The large lot across from Home Depot. The wine building, the big blue barn that's over near Home Depot, that is going to get remowed. It already grew back. Those are really awesome to have to remow, but it's a large lot. All right, and number 7, our successes all around town are due to the owners and the occupants. That is where we get the educational compliance, and we're very thankful when we partner with the people that care for our city, and it's much appreciated. For instance, a couple of successes would be like the gas station, if you haven't been by, that 1300 East Ocean block, near 5th and East Ocean. Also across from McDonald's, that looks a lot better. Of course, there's other things going on that are outside the weed abatement program. 1300 East Ocean, the blocks over there with big lots, that's all cleared up. That's been recently mowed. For instance, Crown Circle around the perimeter, which is kind of an interesting dynamic that hadn't been out of compliance in years. So I was working with some property managers. Which brings us into our partnerships with property managers, owners, and concerned individuals have reached out. There's a shortage of landscapers. They can't even rent mowers because they're all out in the field mowing and probably remowing. And some extensions have been given to help in these instances. We really work with our community. Our goal is to gain compliance through education, not to send a mower out to do all the work and then charge them extra money. One of the biggest statistics from last year was forced abatements. The recap, I only had to force 1 parcel, and that will happen again to the same parcel because we don't have any errors to that. The person is no longer, he's deceased, so we can't find anybody to be responsible for that property. So with all of these large numbers, we were still able to get it down to just have 1, and that's such a special circumstance, though. It's unavoidable. The challenges this year have been phasing out a current program we use here at City Hall and going to a new platform for tracking stuff. That's been awesome, to say the least. One of the things we found too in the assessors, the parcel information hadn't been uploaded, so I contacted IT. Been almost 2 years since they updated the who owns the property, so I was getting letters back, I no longer own this property. So that was taken care of. We updated the data. And of course the rain, but that's also a good thing. So there's no complaints on all the wonderful rain we've gotten. And with that, that concludes my staff report. And if there's any questions or anything you'd like to discuss, I'm here to help.
All right. First, I want to say thank you. I know this is a thankless job, and that you're spending a lot of time out in the field and trying to do this with a smile. And I also want to thank all of the property owners that have responded to see the list go from 13 pages to 7 pages since Friday. That's a big thank you to the owners of the properties in the community. So thank you. Councilmember Ball.
Yeah, so maybe the mayor and I can align our efforts and turn this into not a thankless job and say thank you. So I'd like to add my thank you to that. And for anyone in the community that sees property being improved and looking nicer, they should say thank you to you as well. I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your flexibility working with people to get to the finish line and help make our town look better. I know there's a few people that get frustrated because they don't want government telling them what to do. But look, the overwhelming majority of people in our community love to get up, go outside, and see a nice neighborhood and just see people have some pride in their city. So again, we're talking about the worst case scenarios that that are left. But again, you started with 350, you're down to 62. That's only 17-ish% left out of that list. That's really great work, and we're very lucky to have you here doing that work. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Councilmember Starbuck.
One thing that this shows is every one of them is weeds on lot. But when you read the subject, it says a public hearing nuisance abatement of rubbish and refuse. I'm curious, is there a resolution we could put together where we could clean up the urban camping and the trash that's deposited, et cetera, where we don't have to give notice, we can take immediate action?
I'd like to answer that question, but I think it's out of my lane. I'd defer that to the city attorney's office.
So we should change the subject then on this to just weed abatement.
This particular area of law is just the private properties, so if we're,
That's where a lot of the camping's happening.
well, there are several ways that we can enforce camping or refuse and debris on private property through code enforcement. This, I know traditionally we have done weeds. Rubbish, refuse, and dirt, I think can also be done through this process, but we don't have any of those.
I'm just looking for a tool to clean up stuff. And this doesn't appear to be that tool then,
Not on public property, no.
right?
Well, not on public property, potentially on private property. We just have not used that tool in the past through the fire department in this program. But it is a tool that is available among many other tools that code enforcement can use.
Councilmember Ball.
No, I was just going to say, look, both things need to happen. We need to do our best to clean up the whole town in every single facet. But the homeless issue, we've got to deal with that. We're dealing with court challenges, the state telling us what we can or can't do, and you have to do this a certain way. So that's totally separate. We're talking about this. Let's keep those separate. We got to address the homeless issue. We have to address camping in the riverbed, the way it looks, and the ways that it impacts our town. But that's not an excuse to let homeowners park 7 cars in front of their house and let the weeds go crazy and create a hazard for people in the neighborhood. Two separate issues. So again, I'm very proud of our city for making efforts, for making inroads, and we're going to do the best we can. We're going to keep heading in the right direction. I'm very confident of that. Thank you.
There is one thing I do to try to help mitigate that, because a lot of these parcels could be out of state. I send notices to New York, Texas. I do, at times when we have something that's a little outside of the scope of work that I need to do, I will send them actual pictures, and then they can discern what their scope of work is, because maybe they're not present or seeing it. So I have seen that abate graffiti. I did not specifically address the graffiti, but they saw it on their building from out of state and they took care of it. So.
All right, if there are no more questions or comments for staff, we'll go to public comment on this. If you would like to speak to this item, you're more than welcome. It's 3 minutes. The number to call is 805-875-8201, or you may come to the podium.
So the battalion chief brought up the shortage of workers and access to equipment. Why not contact some of these local ranches and get some goats to come onto these properties and take care of the weeds? They'll spend the day eating the weeds, and you don't have to hire people. You don't have to use equipment. You don't have to do any of that. Maybe have one of these temporary fences up and, someone to supervise the animals, and that's it. Because today, when me and my wife were leaving a doctor's appointment, and there's a large vacant lot right next to where it was. We saw 2 trucks and a tractor that was in this big vacant lot taking care of the weeds. So, that's a lot of resources. That's a lot of, there's payroll. There's, a lot going into that. Maybe we could reach out to some of our local ranches that have goats and utilize some of their goats to do some, yard maintenance in our community, especially some of these properties that we have to kind of force our own, weed abatement. Well, it might be more cost efficient if we utilized goats. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else rise and no one calling in, we will bring it back to council for any other comments or questions or entertain a motion. Councilmember Vega.
I'll make the motion that we just go ahead and accept as written, adoption of resolution 6578.
All right.
I'll second.
Councilmember Ball seconds. Any other questions? Seeing none, let's vote. And that passes 4-0 with one in absence. All right. Did we have any written communications on any items, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am, nothing.
Thank you. This is your opportunity for the final 2 minutes of oral communications. If there is an item you would like to bring to our attention, you may come to the podium for 2 minutes, or you may call in at 805-875-8201. We'll give that a little time while we wait to see if anybody calls. I'll go ahead and kick off my announcements. Again, the Lompoc Police Department Food Truck Celebration is tomorrow evening from 4 to 7 p.m. at City Hall. In conjunction, Cyclemania will be here for the same time. They will have the bicycle rodeo for your kids to experience. There will be a ride at 6 p.m. around the neighborhood behind us, and there will be valet parking for your bicycles. So we encourage you to ride your bikes over for the food truck event, given parking is limited when we use the parking lot for the food truck event. Oh, there's the lovely poster, and you can see all the food trucks that are coming. Thank you for putting that up. I appreciate that. Seeing no one call in or rise for the final 2 minutes, we will close oral communications and bring it back to council for comments and meeting reports. Councilmember Vega, you're up.
Nothing to report.
All righty, Councilmember Ball.
Okay, just a couple of quick things. First of all, I want to say thank you to Mr. Nicolinko. Nicolinko, I always get his name wrong. But you're almost at every city council meeting, and I want to say thank you, and I appreciate that. But you missed the last one, and I've got an exciting update for you. In this current budget, body cams are in the budget. It's going to happen. I'm on public record saying that, so if it doesn't happen, then it's on me. But just wanted to update you on that. And I thank you for being persistent and reminding us that it's a big deal, and we're going to make that happen. So thank you for reminding us about that. And then, let's see, I got a chance to attend. I'm not the most spiritual or religious person, I'll admit that up front, but I was invited to the National Day of Prayer, and I really appreciated that. I really enjoyed that. And to see our faith-based community coming together, and they disagree about lots of things, but to see them come together for the good of our city and the city leaders, I was just really great. I really appreciate the invitation. I look forward to hopefully attending that again. And then, let's see, Mayor already mentioned it, but the National Police Week and the event that's going on tomorrow, I'm going to be a few minutes late, but my wife's going to take our baby son down, and hopefully I don't miss the bike rodeo, because I'm really, really excited about that. And I don't want to put any pressure on the mayor, but there's a chance I show up with my bike, and we might have to do a quarter mile or something, but it's to be determined.
It's about a quarter mile for the ride around the block, and there will be electric bikes to try. They'll have their demo bikes. Councilmember Starbuck.
I think you two should race, but, yeah, I'd like to, yeah, I had the privilege of attending the flag change ceremony at the Fallen Warriors Memorial, a very solemn event, and I'd like to throw out something to Vanderbilt Space Force Base, the Honor Guard, very professional, and the Vanderbilt Space Force Base Chiefs Association for their donation of the flag.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate you attending, as I had a conflict, so thank you for doing that. The electric department has once again received the American Public Power Association Safety Award of Excellence for 2022. So congratulations. There are several categories, and they received a first in their category, so we appreciate the work they do. Once again, lifeguard training is available. The deadline to register for that is May 22nd. The training occurs from the 26th of May through the 29th. Anybody 15 years or older is available to attend, and there is a $200 fee, but if you apply with the City of Lompoc and are hired within 30 days of completing that course, that money is reimbursed to you. In the next budget, we are looking at moving some of those positions to full-time. So there is an opportunity that if you're in college and want a great job, in high school want a great job, or retired and want a great job, there's an opportunity, and we're providing that training. So please consider that. We do have a shortage, like everything, in every position, we have a shortage of lifeguards. So in order to have the pool open, we need lifeguards. I was absent the last official meeting because I was in DC for our Northern California Power Agency for our federal policy conference. So I have a backlog in things I need to report out to you that I have been attending, but let me try and do it quickly. Santa Barbara County area governments had a Sacramento need. I was going to be there already for the League of California City Leaders Conference in Sacramento, so I was able to combine and take care of two issues and advocate for an issue that Santa Barbara County area governments had before one of the transportation subcommittees. I also participated in our government grant called the Old CC grant that we have examining how we can support the base. We had our final steering committee meeting, and I was able to attend that. The regular meeting for the Santa Barbara County area governments, which I currently chair. I also attended two other League of California Channel Counties region. Along with the city manager, we went to the city manager mayor's meeting in Santa Maria last month, and then we went to the Channel Counties annual dinner that was held this year in San Luis Obispo and represented the city there. It's fascinating to attend because you learn what other communities are doing and what their focus is so that we understand what our partners in the region are doing. We hosted the Leadership Lompoc Valley's Government and Public Safety Day. I want to thank the police and fire department for allowing them to tour their facilities. They came here to City Hall and we did a mock city council and discussed the structure of our city and helped them understand that. We had the State of the City. It is recorded. It is on YouTube. You are welcome to watch it for free. And then I want to also thank the local community, faith-based community, for putting on the National Day of Prayer. It was held while I was in DC, so I did get to participate at the DC one, but I wasn't here for our local, so thank you to all our council members who were able to attend here at the local. But they also organized the homecoming service for Corporal Carmen Carrillo, and I want to thank Vandenberg Space Force Base for turning out in support of that. It was a very unique and special circumstance that we were able to give Corporal Carmen Carrillo a homecoming and a service. We had did a housing workshop, and the city manager, I attended that to advocate for our local housing needs, and I'm on the rotation for beautification committee this month, and so I attended that meeting. And last but not least, I want to also thank the Urban Forestry Department for organizing our local Arbor Day, and this year we honored Junie McKinnon. She had a magnolia tree planted at River Park on her behalf. She was a longtime community member who did a lot of volunteering to help with several issues with women and kids, and then she was also my appointee to the beautification committee before she passed away. So I thank you all for organizing that. That was a lovely ceremony. With that, we will adjourn this City Council meeting to the next regular meeting at 6:30 p.m. on June 6, 2023, and there will be more budget discussions that evening.